Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm in my copper tree studio today. I'm in a different location. I'm back here. I am going crazy, going to town on these copper trees. They're so meaningful to me right now. So as you can see, this one I'm in the process of. I don't know, can you see that? It's in a different place than where it was last time I showed it to you. So yeah, I've got a few more branches to sew on, but I'm going to go ahead today and start on the leaves, which back behind me, if you see this weeping willow tree, do you see that? This is by far the biggest one I've ever done behind me. It's an 8-foot tall by 4-foot wide one. I've decided not to make one that big for this one. But yeah, so I still have some more branches to sew on this, but I'm gonna take a break from that and start working on my leaves. So I have these that I've taken little strips of copper right here, and I've sprayed a solution on it to accelerate the patina process. So they're already really beautifully patinaed, and I cut out all the leaves individually, and it's kind of fun because you watch this process unfold where as you're cutting them, some of the patina rubs off, and so some of the copper, I don't know if you can see that up close, but some of the copper comes back in around the tips where you're cutting, so it leaves this really kind of cool outline. And they're all individual. I'm gonna use this as a template and trace some leaves and cut some leaves out, and then I'll start the sewing process. I sew these each individually onto the canvas, where just kind of wherever I put them. So I'm going to do that, but really what I want to do is talk a little bit about how these trees have been speaking to me as of late. In the last episode, I talked about the idea of letting go and holding things loosely as opposed to, you know, reaching for control and holding them tightly and grasping and clinging, and what can happen when we let go. And part of the process of that is treating things like they're not precious. Well, I gave that a little bit more thought, and while I think that's true, I also wanted to expand that thought a little bit. You know, we have things in our lives that are precious that we would never treat as unprecious. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying, okay, for instance, I have 4 daughters, and the oldest one is 21, and the youngest one is 12. And I promise you, Bree, my 12-year-old, I say this to her every day because I feel like every day she wakes up and she's grown like an inch, okay? The kid has legs for miles. She is so tall. She has not passed me up yet, but I feel like it's only a matter of time. I tell her probably almost every day, stop, will you stop growing up? And of course, you know, it's just kind of a joke, but of course I don't want her to stop growing up, right? So, but here's the danger of what happens when we cling and grasp rather than let go. What I'm saying to her is I want her to stay in a 12-year-old state. Well, of course that's crazy. Of course we don't want our kids to stay 12 forever. We want them to grow up. I mean, the whole goal of parenting is to let them fly out of the nest and flourish and fly and have their own identity and their own lives and their own relationships and their own beautiful wings. But it's a painful letting go. So that means as a mom, I can hold precious her 12-year-old moment. I can hold precious what I see in her today, where she is in her process today. And that is precious to me. But if I grasp and cling and don't do the work of letting go, which means seeing her as precious, but also seeing this moment in time as a moment in time that's going to be fleeting, it's going to come and go. I am going to remember her as 12, but she's not going to be 12 forever, nor do I want her to be 12 forever. So the process for me is letting go of the 12-year-old and being fluid enough to grow up with her, to honor precious loss when it comes. I will always think of Bree as precious, but I will always kind of mold with her as she morphs, I morph. I look at her life and I see what it's all about becoming. I get to watch her become, which means there was something that existed before this moment, and there's something that'll exist after this moment. And so I think all of life is a process of letting go and watching things become beautiful and letting go of our expectations of what they're supposed to be. My husband and I went through a divorce. It was final about a year ago. And so part of the process of that was letting go of what we thought things were going to be. And now on this side of things, we're learning how to parent together. We're learning how to be friends. We're learning how to coexist in the world in a different way. But before we could do that, we had to honor the precious loss of what things were in order to be able to go into the things that will be. It's kind of like the sketch I tore out last episode. I ripped a page out of my journal that felt precious to me in the way that it was living, but it wanted to live in some other way. And so in order to let it live in some other way, I had to let go of it being privately in my journal and move into the new for what it was going to be. And I love this quote. I'm going to read you a quote by Walter Brueggemann. He says, "It is the aim of every totalitarian effort to stop the language of newness, and we are now learning that where such language stops, we find our humanness diminished." So anytime we push up against the new, anytime we push up against transformation or something that you see that you had intentions for take on a new direction, there's going to be a fight. And somebody said, I can't remember who said this, but they said you cannot hold on to the old, all the while declaring that you want something new. The old will defy the new. The old will deny the new. The old will decry the new. There's only one way to bring in the new. You must make room for it. Ooh, so that's where the ideas for this tree come in. So I wrote all these ideas down under this first collage paper layer. And then I went ahead and decided I was going to do an ash tree for this one. Ash trees are significant. They symbolize newness, enlightenment, growth. And I love the idea of building on top of something. You have layers. Life is layered. You have old things. You have present things. You have new things. We have history that we need to learn from as humans. So a lot of our human history, really ugly human history and really beautiful human history, it's all on these pages under here. There's little George Washington up there. I don't know if you can see him. I don't think you can see him, but George Washington is up there. The 60s, I started this around Martin Luther King Day, so I was thinking a lot about what our American history, the horrid things that happened, the beautiful people who rose up to fight against injustice. It's all in there. Well, you know, not all of human history, but a lot of big pieces of our human history. It's on here. I sanded it down, glued some more, sanded it down more. I slapped some paint on it. So this tree I wanted to build over top of ruins. Okay, so all these papers used to be part of something else. They used to be part of old history books. People from the early 1900s had these pages in their hands. I don't know who held these books, but some of them are antiques. Some of them were published in the late 1800s. There's old hymnal books from the 60s. There are people who had their hands on these papers. But these little fragments were part of a bigger thing. They were part of a book. But I've torn them out, and so now they're going to become part of this. So they're ruins, and I wanted to build this ash tree which is fragmented copper, really. They're pieces of copper. Everything's fragmented. I wanted everything to be kind of ruinous and fragmented. There's narrative, there's story, there's good, bad, ugly, you name it. It's in there. So I wanted to build this ash tree on that kind of story to signify that we always have ruins. We always have things that were precious in a different expression of what precious was. And the question I'm asking myself is, am I fluid enough? Am I flexible enough? Am I receptive enough to go into the future and allow the things that I'm holding loosely, holding precious? I hold certain relationships precious. I hold people precious. I hold things precious. And even as I hold them precious, I want to give them the gift of change, of transformation, which means they're going to change and they're going to look different. And that could be painful in a lot of ways. And so that's my hope. And those are my thoughts as I think about doing this ash tree. Those are kind of the thoughts that are turning. So thanks for listening. And I'm going to get back to work on my leaves because I can't multitask. If I try to actually do these leaves, I'm not going to make any sense. So thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.